them all down into one word. That word would be community. It would be the recognition of our deep interconnectedness.
Hello, everyone. This is Melanie St. James signing in from Tokyo, and we're here with the Global Summit in a special interview with Dr. Suad Sualaiman, a remarkable environmentalist, scientist, and doctor with too many accolades to read off. Empowerment Works and the Global Summit community started getting to know Dr. Suad Sualaiman in 2007 when she came to California on a climate change educational tour. And we hosted her for Art for Africa, which was a really beautiful event. And again, we had the pleasure of having her on a webinar with Polly Higgins in the lead up to the Global Summit edition of 2012 and discussing stage 2 of the 7 stages to sustainability, looking at how do we assess our assets and appreciate our natural heritage. I'm going to hand it over to you, Dr. Suad, to just tell us a little bit about the work that you've been doing in your many decades of work that has created over 70 published papers, the head of various scientific committees. Now you're working on 24 projects with the United Nations that is taking you away from our forum panel. And since you were the inspiration for this conversation, really grateful to have this interview with you to share with our panel afterwards. So yeah, back to you. Take it away. Tell us about your work, and then we can get into the conversation at hand, which is race, equity, and humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. And it's really a pleasure to be with you and discuss some of the points that we have been, discussing since for the past, long years that we have known each other. And I still remember my visit to a place in San Francisco and so on. Those were the days. I would like to talk about my country, Sudan. Because that's where I belong, that's where I have lived, that's where I was brought up, and that's where I care for the people and for the environment and for everything that is happening currently. With all this COVID thing that is happening, changing the world and changing the way we have been living and changing everything for us, and we don't know where we're heading to. I started off as a fresh graduate from the University of Khartoum. I worked on parasitology, and I was interested in waterborne diseases. I did my master's degree at the London School of Hygiene, and then did my PhD back here in Sudan on schistosomiasis or bilharzia. And then I got carried away with all waterborne diseases, which happened to be endogenous here in Sudan, like malaria, bilharzia or schistosomiasis, and onchocerciasis, which is river blindness, leishmaniasis, and all sorts of things. And that brought me into community development and areas where there are lots of these diseases. And when you go to such areas, you just see the weak points. You look at the children and you detect immediately what they lack. I've worked in several projects in Sudan, but one of the programs that have been establishing in the western part of Sudan, in Kordofan, and there in Kordofan, there was a big problem of malaria, bilharzia, and waterborne diseases, and we thought of having a big program on control of this. And we sort of, established a small field station. We had our research students, because I was then the director of the Tropical Medicine Research Institute. And we thought that we are going to leave or to do lots of projects to control all these diseases. And we were very much interested in waterborne diseases, and they have sort of, in that area specifically, they have sort of a big man-made lake, which is the main source of their water. During the rainy season, most of the rainwater just accumulate in that lake. And then after the rainy season, it becomes the water source for them, for the people, for the animals, for all the water activities, and for agriculture. And whenever we went to that area and looked at the water source, we realized that we need to have some water purification, clean water brought to the people, and then restrictions so that the people do not use the lake water straight away, or they swim in that lake water because then they will get bilharzia. And then during the rainy season, during the summer or so, there is a lot of breeding of mosquitoes that carry malaria and other diseases. And the lake is very close to the marketplace. And in that area, there was, I think the market was about twice a week. All the villages around, they would come to the market and they bring their things and they buy their things and so on. So there were lots, and the rail station, the train from the western part of Sudan would stop there, I think twice a week. And then everyone got down from the train and they went to the lake. They washed, they cleaned up, and then they just, took off, went to the road to take a bus down to Al Ubaid, which was the main station, or down to Khartoum or to other areas, or to settle in Al Rahat. So it is called Al Rahat. So I really thought that, having a field station for research in that area was really very important, so that we can do all the observations, we can educate the communities, we can control the diseases, we can improve on the lifestyle of the people and the school children and so on. Anyway, that continued for a few years, and we had lots of successes, lots of stories and things. And then I was sacked from my position, so I had to leave, and the project stopped. And since then, it's about 20 years now, I think. Every time I feel like going back to that area because there is so much to be done. And I always read, and whenever I read the literature, whenever I ask people about it and so on, I find that there is a lot of increase of malaria, a lot of increase of waterborne diseases, and the people are not improving in their lifestyle. There is no development, sort of community developmental in the area, because they are still doing the same things. They are not having clean water. They don't filter their water. They don't have, separate places for their animals to go and get water, and for the people to get clean water, and for others to get water to wash and clean up. So that was my idea at the beginning, and I wasn't able to do it. Anyway, there are lots of things like that, and then I hope one day I'll do. I still hope to go back, of course. And for the past 20 years, I've been involved with a little bit of teaching, private universities, and I teach parasitology and environment. And then I was involved with the Sudanese Environment Conservation Societies, and that is one of the oldest NGOs in Sudan. It is concerned with environment and conservation in the Sudan. And with that environment and with that society, I really learned a lot. I mixed with people from different disciplines, and I started to appreciate how important interdisciplinarity in community development and environment protection and conservation. People from different disciplines, when they get together, each one of them will try to link and to join their expertise with the others, rather than having, the medical doctors working alone and the engineers working alone and the agriculturists working alone. But if we are interdisciplinary, we can get all the people, working together. And that's how I manage my projects with the society. And we really did some good work. I remember the first time I was in charge of one of the big projects there, we got the society got a project from UNEP, and it was immediately after the conflict, the resolution of the peace agreement with the South. And UNEP wanted to do a post-conflict environmental assessment. And that big program was given to me because the society was in charge to link with UNEP and to do that. And if you go to the website of UNEP and check on the Sudan component and post-conflict environmental assessment, you'll find lots of information there. And still, I think I was very lucky because I had the chance to learn a lot about the country, about the people, about the different projects, about the resources that we have in the Sudan, and about the difficulties that people go through for having a good living and improvement in their livelihood.
So it's been 1 year since the transition of Sudan's government from a complete military regime, and in that time, to a what?
To a 50% military regime. Now, because
so now it's half, and so this was a negotiation, and what is at stake now? And so, do you feel that it needs to complete the transition in order for there to be any success for the people, or to come? What is?
They left the country in debt, and most of the civil service is down. Most of the health, education, and infrastructure and capacity of the people, education, and so on, have been very poor. And the civil service in health and education, schools, primary schools, even, and secondary schools and university, they are a very poor and bad situation. And this takes, if you want to improve on the livelihood of the people, you have to provide good livelihood, good education, and good health services. Now, during the past 30 years, there was a lot of immigration from the displacement and immigration from the different states to Khartoum. Now Khartoum is expanding, services are not as good as they should be, and the population is increasing because most of the people who have left, like Darfur and other areas where they don't have enough services, they come and settle in Khartoum.
So it's an urban sprawl. So it's sprawling without the infrastructure
sprawling
support.
Without ends. They brought in their own habits, their own living, and they don't get any services or education or good health or good living conditions and so on. So how are we going to get these people back to their areas? We have to develop the states. We have to develop the areas and make them attractive for the people to go back.
Right, a decentralization plan.
Yeah.
Well, actually, let's talk about that, because what does it take, right? I mean, so you're at the intersection of community development, government, health services, and so what is broken? And is there, you've mentioned the need for cross-sector interdisciplinary approaches. What do you see as like the most efficient, effective intervention of, what to do, right? I mean, it's a huge question. And I know you've had like these way ahead of their time pioneering projects that didn't get the support that they needed to create resilience, many years ago. And you've since worked on many other projects, right? So, what would be the interventions that are, and what could the world join forces within Sudan these days, if we believe that we all need strong communities, and that if we're only strong if we're all strong, how can we make the people and communities and the environment of Sudan more resilient? What would that take?
During the past 30 years, I think from 1992, there were sanctions imposed on Sudan. And sanctions were so harsh. It is the problem of the civil society and the civil government to invest and to develop projects and to get people educated, treated, and living well and paid well and provide services for them.
The theme of the Leaders Forum is from the soil to the rising seas, we are the solution. And this session is, it's moving into the rising seas in the next session, but, looking at like, how do we come together to deal with extreme hardship? in the world and with the environment, you know? So when I asked you, like, what have you seen change? I mean, we're talking politically, but environmentally. And
Yeah.
so what I'm looking at is like, not to feed a story, but like we're, you know, I mean, I'd like to hear your thoughts on us going through more intense climate change. If you see indicators of that and how you see those indicators affecting local people in the Sudan, where there are some areas that are water deficient, and you know, like how that vulnerability for everyday people is increasing or not. And you know, like, what can we learn from you? That's one of the things. We have the bishop, who is part of the conversation, who lived through the Rwanda genocide. We have Vincent Lee, who was traumatized and having, you know, being separated from his family in the Cambodian genocide. And there are conflicts going on today, and most of the world isn't looking at these things. You know, we're so busy with pop media, politics, being divisive. And it seems to me that, you know, that what's really scary is that the kind of, the more fear we have, we keep retreating into our negative tribalism, and becoming less compassionate about the others that we don't align with, and have a harder time finding that humanity. Right. And so in a place like the Sudan, you know, where you have had this civil war, you know, what are some of the things that the world can learn from the Sudan and coming through that peace process, and also still facing an environmental hardship to come? So let's talk about human security, right? The intersection of conflict, resources, population. Nobody wants to talk about population. You know, where is the world going to be in 10 years? And not just because of population, but the way the Western consumption has promoted itself, right? I mean, what are you seeing as an ecologist and a doctor?
I think that unless the wise people, the environmentalists, the people who can plan and implement, you know, policies correctly, there will be a lot of conflict over resources in the coming few years. We see it in Sudan. We are farmers, we are agriculturists, we are animal breeders, we are people who own their own land and their own businesses. And with the movement, with the changes that occurred over the past 30 years, and the takeover of the land and property, people are trying to go back and get their owners what they owned. And there will be conflict over those. There will be conflict over people who have settled in areas for about 10, 15 years, and the original owners of the land. And with climate change and the changes in the land, you know, degradation thing, the quality of agriculture, the productions, the agricultural schemes that have been implemented by the past regime and so on, I think there will be a lot of conflict. And that's why I think our wise Prime Minister asked for a UN assistance to start, you know, bringing in peace and normalcy to the different lives in the Sudan. And that's what I told you about, that there is a mission from the UNDP that they want the NGOs to work with them so that they can help the Sudan government bringing peace and resettlement in the different lands after their revolution.
So this is a program right now.
As with health, I think we are seeing lots of diseases, new diseases coming in with the population movement. I mean, like malaria, we never had malaria in all over the Sudan. It was sort of very regional, and transmission was restricted on a very short period during the rainy season. Now you see more of it, now more of the outbreaks, because there is a lot of agriculture, there is a lot of breeding sites from the mosquitoes, there is a lot of movement of the people who are infected from their own areas to the areas where there is no infection, and there is a lot of transmission of the other diseases. And as I told you, Khartoum has expanded. People came from the different states with their diseases. We never had different diseases like in Khartoum, but now we have, because people came from the different areas with their diseases.
Do you just have a closing word of like, you know, how can we, like, this nugget of like, how do we live with more compassion going into that, right? I mean, it's going to be like that, not just for Sudan, but the whole world.
That's right.
Would you say, you know, what does that mean for our global citizens and our global community? Is the current nation state system working? Should we be working on maybe a different design or something to complement the United Nations? I know it's late, but this is, you know, this is kind of the bigger picture. Like every way we turn, it seems like we're at an impasse of one crisis or another. So yes. Is there not a silver bullet, but like an actual solutionary path? And does it have to do with systemic governance change? And do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah. If you look at the SDGs, it starts with poverty and it ends with partnerships. I think it should start with partnerships. We have to develop partnerships for the control of all the 16 things in the SDGs. Unless we share with each other, we work together, we have interdisciplinary activities, and we partner in the good and in the bad. Like if there is an outbreak of something in an area, people who know how to control that outbreak should come in. If we have shortage of treatment of something, people who have the drug or the vaccine, or they should come in as soon as possible. They should partner with those who suffer. And we have to believe in ourselves. We have to believe that we have to work hard for our countries, for our people, for humanity, and for protection of the human race. I mean, it doesn't matter whether I am in Sudan or in the US or in Japan. Yet, deep in my heart, I have to think of people as people that need to be supported. It hurts when you see there is like, floods in India and people have been, over flooded, buildings have gone down and water have swamped some of the houses. Unlike what happened in Beirut. I mean, it really hurts in your heart to see that. What can we do to prevent such things? People have to think in a more compassionate way. We have to protect each other. We have to work for the benefit of humankind. We have to help those who need to be helped. Unless we do that, I think the world will come to an end pretty fast. Thank you.